I'm looking at my own base and I have mixed feelings. This is the best base I have ever built. It has no flaws, but this does feel kind of a weird. No, it's perfect. I fixed all the mistakes from last time. Although this one guy did flame this middle part. Nah, that guy's wrong. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm so excited. This is it. But the outpost is alright, like it's not so bad if you jump from here and the roof is fine if you think about it like this, you know, like... When I found a flaw, I often just coped and said that it's alright because I was too lazy to fix the thing. This will happen to you too, and when it happens, you just need to not listen to the voice that says, "Oh, it's alright, you don't need to fix it." Bro, just fix it. You can clearly see it's a problem, but you are just scared of actually trying to solve it. And you know that weird feeling you get sometimes? That's a flaw too, and you need to recognize it. Though more about that later on. This video is all that you need to find flaws in any base, whether it's yours or someone else's. I have also structured this video in a precise way, so I advise you to watch it through without too much of skipping. Before we go deeper into the topic, I just want to remind you that one flaw can make your base very bad. It's important that you don't neglect the basics or any other part of this guide. So, for example, if your base is otherwise perfect, but your mobility sucks, you probably lose the next online raid. This is the same as multiplying with 0. Million times 300 times 0 is 0. Nice open core times insane compound times no retakes to shooting floor results as a lost raid because raiders took control of your shooting floor. With this in mind, I also want to inform you about my Discord server, where I host free live coaching, challenges and other cool stuff. So if you want to be part of those, click the top link in the description. Part 1. Things that you need to have in your base. The following steps include only the stuff you actually need in a base, not any bullshit. Step 0. Know what you need. Even though there is no universal truth for this, I will give my opinion on the things that you actually need to have. I will leave out things like funnel walls and head glitch peaks because they are not actually necessary. They are just additions to things that already exist. You must know what is actually necessary in your base and what isn't. Why, you might ask? Because you need to remove the unnecessary features. Just delete them. Right now. You might just cope because it's way cooler to have the huge ass mountain roof and a funnel wall than a base that actually functions. If someone asks what should they add to their base, I just advise them to think about what they could remove from the base instead. They won't do it, that's for sure. But I mean, sure, if you want to lose raids, farm all night, especially not get any online raids, and build the base for most of the vibe, go ahead, put that meta in your base, even though it's almost useless and it has more cons than pros. Step 1. My list of the actually necessary stuff in a base design. All of the following things apply to most bases that are bigger than this. So if you were to build small solo bases, I would apply the same information but just a tiny bit differently. For this you need a little bit of intelligence, but I'm sure you have some since you are watching this type of video. This list is also completely my opinion and other people's opinions might be different. At the moment I don't want to add anything or take away anything, but if you notice something that could be added, removed or changed, please let me know in the comments. Starter. I think every base needs a starter just because building a separate starter is just a waste of materials. If you don't get huge, and I mean huge benefits when you leave your starter out, then don't even bother to think about it. Main core, if that makes sense, just a central area with a bunch of loot rooms. Enough boxes, 6 to 7 boxes per person in larger groups, and more is always better. Solo, duo, trios need more, but about 9 to 10 I would say is good amount for them. Bunkers if you want any offline defense. If the base is mostly for online raids and you don't care about offline defense, then fair enough, but I usually like to have bunkers if it's just possible. At least one mobility chute, even solo bases. Bigger bases will need more obviously. Beds connected to important places, for example roof. Also make sure to have enough beds and don't go over the limit, which is 15 respawns per person. Main defense layer if you want any defense for onlines, this is normally a shooting floor. Retakes to important places, for example roof. Remember to combine different retakes to see every possible spot. Compound, no matter what you are building for, random or yourself. I would include additional compound no matter what's the base design. It's just because you never know how your wipe will end up and you might want something better than what you can come up with on the spot. Enough large furnaces if you want any. In most cases you will want some, and sometimes you might end up going a little overboard. Small group will never use 20 large furnaces, especially with the electric furnaces now in the game. And finally, external TCs to prevent griefing. Part 2. Questions and tips for reviewing a base. Now we will get into the stuff that you need when you're reviewing your own or friend's base. Step 1. Basics. As with all things, you need to start from the basics. Keeping an eye on the basics is especially important when looking for flaws. If the basics of your base are flawed, the whole base is instantly flawed. It's like building a house on the sand. That's stupid, right? It's going to fall instantly. So instead, if you build your house on a rock, that's much more solid foundation and your house will not fall because of it. This is the same as if you went to the gym the first time and tried to bench 100 kg. It won't probably end well, right? So progress from the basics. Like in the gym, you need to start with your form first with low weights and progress from there. The basics can be forgotten under all the new metas that builders are picking up, so because of that you might ask, what are the basics then? The basics are, for example, cost, upkeep, overall size of the base, etc. You could also say that every step in this guide in its simplified form is basics. So for example, if you don't have any other mobility up than ladder hatch, that's well very basic stuff. If you are just taking a brief look at someone's base and you notice a huge basic flaw, there wouldn't really be a point going in too deep into the smaller things since they are so insignificant. Step 2. Starter and progression. First and foremost, the starter needs to be suitable for the group and for the progression. It needs to have enough storage for early game and the mats needed for progression. You should also think if you need a starter's starter. That could just simply be a loot room with TC or like 3x1 inside this 3x3 starter. Starter is something that people won't pick on too much, but if you're reviewing your own base, you might want to take a look at it. Then moving on to the general progression of the base, it's nice if you can progress in small steps and you don't have to expand a whole lot just to get to the next defendable step. This is where snowball bases shine, so you can take some inspiration from them. Now, regarding what you are building, I would take into account these next things. Do you have good raid protection early game, aka walls to loot and early game shooting floors, peaks, etc. Raids don't always happen when your base is fully finished, so it's nice if you can defend it without the shooting floor. Do you need more storage with small expansion after the starter if it's needed? You can get loaded easily within early game, so having the choice to expand to fit those AKs is pretty good. Oh, you don't know this feeling? Oh, it's fine. Not everyone is PvP Chad. What is the time needed to start using your main core or loot rooms? For example, needing to finish the whole base just to start using your open core really isn't ideal. Ideally, you can quickly expand and start using the main core after your compound is up. This way, you also have less loot to move into the main core. How cheap is your outer compound? This simply just means that the less you have to use barricades, high external walls or normal walls, the faster you can get those large furnaces running. And finally, remember that the cheaper your expansions are, the easier you can expand. It's really nice in a wipe if you can just expand in a small bits and the base is defendable all the time. Step 3. Mobility. I think this step is pretty straightforward but easy to miss. Small solo duo bases can get away with one mobility shoot or just semi-random jump ups, but when you go anything bigger than that, take the next things into account. Is there enough mobility shoots for the group size and size of the base? I like to have as many mobility shoots as there are symmetrical sides of my base. This is give or take, of course, since if you have a large group but the base is 3-sided, 6 shoots would be better. Does the base have any rings? If not, is it possible to have them? If yes, are they connected to mobility shoots? Rings are not that crucial in smaller bases, let's say a small group and under, but if you have a bit larger group, I would definitely have them. Is the mobility organized? So could you clearly draw the main mobility in your base? If the drawing becomes a big mess, you have a problem. It helps you and your teammates to not get lost in the base, and it's easier to not get caught up in a raid when moving around the base. Are the entrances easily accessible? At least I don't want to run across the whole compound just to get inside. Do you have a lot of jumps in the compound or in base that could annoy your teammates? Base that doesn't have smooth mobility isn't fun to live in. Do you rely on boxes that could not be placed in a wipe as a jump ups? This is mainly a problem in compound, as if you rely on boxes to get over something, what happens when you can't place that box? Also, having very tight gaps that you need to jump through is not ideal. Are you able to access retakes safely and fast? This is something you don't want to miss, as you need to be able to get to your retake in 99 scenarios out of 100. It needs to be safe enough so you don't die on the way there, and it needs to be close enough to the beds and mobility modules so that you can get there almost instantly after respawning. Step 4. Core and boxes. The core is the place you spend most of your time when you are inside the base, so for that reason it's important to get it right. Probably the most crucial part of cores are loot rooms and that you have enough boxes. All of the boxes shouldn't be in the open, since that makes the raid kind of easy for the raiders, so I like to have different types of loot rooms. Then some questions. If there are bunkers, are they connected well so it's easy to access them? This is important if you like to use bunkers like normal loot rooms. If you use the bunkers only when you go offline, then accessibility isn't that big of a deal. Just make sure that you still have some kind of reasonable mobility there. If the core has peaks into it, do the peaks have good angles and how exposed are you when you're peaking? Here you can see how exposed I am. Yeah, I think you know where I'm going with this. Are there turrets, and if yes, are they out of the raid path and still have good angles? Every open core should have turrets, but not every open core has good turrets. Wouldn't it be quite sad if the raiders breach into your core like normally and the turrets would blow up accidentally? And finally, are your mobility suits connected to your core? If not, connect them. How do you otherwise access your core when it's raided? By the jump up from the starter? I don't think so. Step 5. Peaks and retakes. It's all fun and games when you spam peaks everywhere, but now let's see if any of those peaks are actually good. See, you actually don't need as many peaks as you think you need. I have started to have less peaks and more cover because one quality peak is 100 times better than multiple bad peaks without any cover. So, I guess the first question is, do you have useless peaks? Just place a wall there instead of a window. You can just feel how much safer you are after you do that. I know that you are a little bit scared to be on the shooting floor when you are trying to kill a grub. Why? Because it's not safe. That's why I don't have as many peaks. Does the base have downward angles? If not, you should definitely have them, and if yes, then can you see straight next to your base from there? There shouldn't be many or any blind spots in your compound, and especially straight next to your base. Grubs and raiders like to hide behind and under things to hide from you, so don't give them those opportunities. How exposed are you when you are peeking? You should see the enemy fully, but the enemy shouldn't see you fully. This is the same as with the peaks inside. I think you get it already. 10. Questions about retakes. Do you have retakes to every important part of your base? These important parts usually have high leverage, meaning that if raiders get control of one of these areas, you might just lose the whole raid because of that. And because of the turret limit, you might also want to have retakes into areas that are not that important anymore. How much can you see from the retakes? If you're looking at a shooting floor retake, for example, it would be nice if you could see the whole shooting floor from those. The more you see, the less you need retakes. Does the roof have angle biter retakes and retakes that see high up? It's important that you can also see on top of those windmill spots, because there might be some rats hiding on top of them. Angle biter retakes are needed to then safely kill anyone that's roaming around on the lower parts of the roof. Step 6. Turrets. You probably know about the turret limit update, and as I'm recording this video, the turret limit is 12. I just wanted to get that out of the way because it might affect some things that I say here. Anyway, turrets are a very crucial part of building and you should pay attention to them. The turret update forces you to make better and more protected turrets, which I actually think is a good thing. So, are your turrets protected? And do they have large visibility? Answer to both of these questions should be yes. The turrets need to see huge area compared to what it needed to see before. Also, in my opinion, all of the outside turrets should be grub proof, so that it's not as easy to raid you after breaking just one turret. Do all of the important places have turrets? These places are, for example, roof, compound and open core. Again, any place that has high leverage is also an important place. After these are covered, you can do electricity stuff to get more turrets inside as well. Do the important places have blind spots from turrets? It's not ideal if raiders or grubs can hide on your roof or compound. The turret should at least see the places where you can ladder onto roof or compound, plus most of the roof or compound as well. Step 7. Beds. There are still some smaller things that are very important, like beds. You might think that, oh, it's only beds, it's not that deep, but it is. They just simply need to be placed well so that you can quickly get back into defending. Like, you might not even know where to place beds. How weird is that? Everyone goes on about new metas, but they don't have the knowledge for basic stuff. No one teaches this. It's so weird. I want more guys like you and me to start building. Anyway, do you have beds everywhere you need? That means that you should have beds on or very near roof, shooting floor, compound and other very important places. It's also nice if you can quickly access your core as well. Are the beds easily accessible? This means that they should be connected to mobility modules where you can quickly access different parts of the base. It can be made by having bedrooms like this on rings or mobility chutes. Do you have enough beds or do you have too many beds? Respawn limit is 15 per player and you do know how to count, so step 8. The weird feeling. This will sound weird if you haven't experienced this. There is this certain feeling that you get sometimes when something is not right, at least for me. I can't speak for everyone, but I'm pretty sure you get this feeling too. Imagine that you are building a shooting floor and it ends up like this. This feels weird, doesn't it? You might not know the problem or the issue causing the feeling, but you do know where it comes from. You can roughly say what's wrong. That's the part you need to redesign. It's very easy to cope here and just say, there's no flaw, since no one can point it out. You just need to be humble and honest with yourself and admit that you need to fix it. Denying the problem doesn't make it go away. I spent long time on this guide and it would mean the world to me if you could just share this video when it feels applicable, even if it's like a few months from now. Like if you're talking with someone and they have a problem with something like this, you can just say go check out Japza's building checklist. It will help both you and me since you will get more content like this because I will be able to produce more videos. If you personally have problems with any of the topics covered in this video, check if I have a guide on it. All of my guides are on this playlist, but if there isn't one that you need, you can join my Discord and let's have a chat.